Hello, everybody. It's the second day of our open house. And right now, Anna Kadieva, the principal of the school, is joining us. My name is Alyoka Molokova. I'm the academic lead of Le Sallay. And the day today is devoted to the marvelous campus of ours. We're going to be talking about the campus life. If you've been following our social media, you've seen that already today. We have a ton of beautiful footage of the campus because this is something that everybody wants to do when they come. So we will tell you today how the whole thing is, how the whole campus is organized. Its history, what do we have there, what do we do there, so how it all works. Anna will tell a bit more, but I would start with, hey, you're here.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me
Hello,
well?
hello. So we have a bunch of questions to you about the campus of ours. So the campus of ours carries the same name as the school. Why is that a thing? These
Should I give a serious answer or a fun one?
both.
Because Le Soleil sounds, to people who don't speak French, sounds a little like Cirque du Soleil, and we just thought of picking the name and confusing people. Misleading marketing be our strategy. That was a non-serious answer, and the serious answer is that the co-founders of the school actually acquired Chateau Le Sallay in order to run on-site sessions there. So we just gave the school the name of the place because this place happened to us in order for school to exist. So yeah. That's a serious answer.
For people who are not familiar with geography of France, where are we? Where is the campus?
I don't want to sound too Parisian, but kind of in the middle of nowhere. So if you imagine a plan of Europe, a map of Europe, there are different countries out there, like Spain, Italy, Germany, France, and it says France on France. And so someone between letters A and N, depending on the font you use for the plan. Like right in the center of France.
Okay, how do we get there? What are the ways to get there if you travel to the on-site session?
Helicopter, parachuting from a private jet. Other than that, you can either drive there from any location. It's pretty drivable. We have a manicure, what's English for circuit? Racing track just near the campus, so it has really good car system routes around, so you can get there by car or you can get there by train if you take train to Nevers train station, or you can travel to Paris and we will meet your kid in Paris airport, in the famous Charles de Gaulle airport, more famous than Charles de Gaulle himself, and drive your kid on a special bus or a minivan or something like that, or on a car to the chateau. That can be an option.
Yeah, so there are multiple ways to get to the on-site session. We offer transfers. We'll help with all of those if you plan to come. So
when you plan to come.
When you plan to come. Mm-hmm. So could you please tell a little bit more about the actual chateau? So chateau sounds, especially for people who don't speak French, like what is a chateau? What is it? How it sounds very old and French. Is it true?
It is French. It is a tiny castle, I guess, castle-ish building. that was founded in the beginning of uh, the 16th century in 1508, and it has an ancient chapel and um, a tower and a bunch of rooms. Has a library that used to be fumoir, a very special French place, um, actually a smoking room, um, and some other rooms. It has, yeah, so that's, I mean, neighbors make fun of us. They say that that's something very new. 16th century is not serious enough for France, but I guess if you're less picky, that might do the thing for you. And there's also a bunch of buildings around on like the territory of Le Sallay that are not the chateau itself, but we have one huge building that used to be stables. Fun fact, it was never actually stables for horses. It used to be stables for cows because we are in Burgundy and we are near Morvan uh, National Park, where that it was used as a supplier of wood for the whole country. So in Burgundy, they genetically kind of selected special Burgundy cows called Charolais. Um, if you ever ate, by the way, bœuf bourguignon anywhere, bœuf bourguignon can only be made out of Charolais meat. Those are huge, I mean, huge white cows. And so they used to live in stables in Chateau Le Sallay. So, uh, um, yeah, we have this huge space that we now use for science classroom, or as ballroom or sports room when the weather is not that good, just because it's huge and empty. And we also have a number of small buildings around that are mostly used as rooms. People just live there. So yeah, they don't have any specific history.
So let's talk a little then about the accommodation. So if a student comes to Les Sallay to the on-site session, they're going to stay there for 3 weeks. So how their accommodation will look like?
So students would live in a room with other students of the same biological sex, which is French law. So even if you are a non-binary person, we would respect this at school, but we would have to go with your biological sex in terms of rooming because see above, that's French law. And we try, of course, to always find roommates that will be close in terms of age or interests, and we always try to accommodate all kind of requests. So people live in rooms of 2, 3, or 4 people. We never put more than 4 people in the room, even if um, the room is big enough, because we have some kind of huge rooms, uh, even huge rooms with separate spaces or stuff like that. But we never do this because each room has its own private bathroom and a loo. And usually, whenever more than 4 people share a bathroom, they stop sharing a bathroom. I mean, they share the toilet, but they don't share the bath part of it. Um, so for the sanity of the whole school community, we don't put more than 4 people in the room. And yeah, it's more or less random. You can get to live in the chateau itself or in a building around, or you can express your requests. And we usually try to make sure that everybody gets a chance to live in every building over the course of the school year. Yeah.
Are there any grown-ups living with kids? So if the kid needs to ask
Yeah.
for,
So obviously we don't have grown-ups living in the room with kids, but we make sure that in every building where kids live, there's at least one grown-up who also lives there, so that if a student um, feels unwell, for example, at night, um, they should have a chance to reach an adult without getting, fully dressed and wandering across the fields to find someone. So that's a safety measure. And generally, it's more safe when there are adults who live in the same building with kids and kind of, oversee in a way. Make sure everything's okay.
Of course. So can you tell a little bit then about, so there are living rooms in the chateau. What about other spaces? What do we have? Where do they have their classes? Where do they have their other activities? How does that look like?
Yeah, so just as I said, we have a library where sometimes people we run classes there sometimes, usually English literature or other literature classes in the library. There is a space we call white room, which is just, well, I mean, it has white walls and white ceiling, so it's white. But that's basically just a room used for different kind of seminars, classes, and stuff like that. We do teach classes in the chapel that I mentioned before. We do as well teach classes in the stables. We sometimes teach classes in just some rooms that are not used as living rooms. We would transform them in a classroom. And yeah, there's a big common space like restaurant that's also used for study halls. Study halls are time slots that every student has during the day, um, reserved for doing homework, self-paced studies, and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it being having a school in a medieval castle would mean that you have classes, your regular classes like math and English and science in a stable or in a chapel or in a library. So that's quite an experience. So can you tell a little bit then? You already mentioned the restaurant. So tell a little bit about that part. Where and what do we eat while we are on site?
We are in the restaurant, we eat food. So we have a buffet, I think it's called, kind of serving with vegetarian options and meat options. And we usually have, we often have fish. We often have meat. We have soups every day, but they're never a single option. So we generally, since students come from this different countries, from different cultures, they are used to eat different food. So what we try to generally follow as a guideline is to give wide choice of simple foods so that students could combine them in a way that will work for them. And I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay, maybe later. Another thing we always do is we accommodate allergies. We do have lactose intolerant students. We have nut allergies, sesame allergies, all kind of allergies, and we make sure that nothing containing this sort of things is ever present on the table, so the student cannot even accidentally consume it.
Can you ask a question? Who cooks for the on-site? Is it a catering or is it a local chef that cooks for the school, or where
It
do we
is
get?
the chateau chef who cooks for the school. So the chateau also works as a restaurant when it's not fulfilled with students, like for just people who, pass by and just stop for dinner. And the same chef usually cooks for us for 3 weeks, which we are incredibly lucky to have.
Yeah.
I mean, different options. We used to have different options throughout our history, and at some point we might have different chefs. That also happens, but all of them were good.
In the end of the year, many of
Incredible.
it is amazing. In the end of the year, many of our students fill the survey about the year and something that they're looking for the most next year when they return. And there are a lot of students saying, we're looking for the chateau meals. This is something that we're going to miss during summer. So, okay, can you tell a little bit about, say, other things? Since we know it's a campus and a hotel, while it's not school time, what are the things that students can do being on site, aside from, well, having their classes, working on their academic part? What else they can do there?
So we have a big, we try to provide students with a bunch of options in terms of sports and not only sports. I would say the approach we generally have is we try to give students a chance to actually experience something with us that they would not necessarily experience at home. We do sometimes exotic sports like fencing or archery. We do some unusual art clubs like I don't know, ancient photography club or mosaic uh, mosaic club. We sometimes have options. We really try to accommodate every student's needs. We had students with whom we built a tiny gym with actual weights because those were teenagers who were into weightlifting and stuff like that, and we wanted to give them a chance to experience that and try this and kind of empower them there. We have students who would say, "Can I please spend my day off cooking in the kitchen along with the kitchen stuff because I really love cooking?" But their parents might not necessarily want to be dealing with the consequences of their cooking at home. So that would also be an option we provide. And yeah, that's generally our approach towards it.
Yeah, we
And
do.
we also go outside, of course.
I have
We leave.
I have a separate question about that. Hold that a little bit.
I
Don't
told you I
tell
didn't read the scenario.
don't tell everything yet. About the chateau also, we do have a pool,
Oh
right?
yeah, we
That
do.
kids, when the weather is good, it's just winter, so I don't think about the pool right now. But when the weather is good, we actually use the pool.
Don't
So
get
they,
flattered. It's a very small pool. If you do professional swimming, that would not be the pool you could practice in. But if you just like, I don't know, getting wet and covered with chlor, sure, that's your place.
okay, so yeah, all kind of things. So the whole grounds during the on-site sessions, the whole grounds are for the school use, for the students' use. They can't leave the grounds by the school rules without grown-up supervising them. So sometimes they take walks outside of the grounds with their counselors or teachers, but they stay within the grounds during the session. And they're pretty much, we try to make it the way that they feel the ownership of it as well. So they have bikes that they can use. They have the swings. They have the fire pit that sometimes we gather around. And they have a zip line there that they can use. And they have a tree house that actually they were building themselves for for the whole year, for one school year. That was this year
That was
project of
even more than one school year, actually. It was like a
oh,
year
yeah,
and a
right.
half. Yeah, and it now should be restored in a
Renovated.
way.
Yeah.
So
So
renovated. Yeah.
this is a project in progress. So if you join school next year, you might be a part of adding more details to the treehouse. So this is kind of the whole school project that we're building there. And yes, we also have all kind of sport equipment, like just tennis, table tennis, basketball hoop, a small football field with football gates and these kind of things that students can use. What we don't have yet, unfortunately, is a climbing gym. We might have at some point, but this is something that several people were looking for. But it takes a little more to build it than a weightlifting station. or a basketball hoop. So, okay, now the question about the outside, outside of the grounds. Most of the time in the school, we do spend inside, we do spend on the campus grounds, but we do go outside sometimes. What are the, especially many families, of course, they're sending their children to France, and being in France, of course, they expect them to get some French experience, French exposure, practice their French as well. So what do we do outside of the campus? Where do we go? What do we do there?
So we would go, sometimes we just go for a walk, for, a walk using our feet, or for a walk on the bikes or something like that. But we also have field trips. We have two kinds of field trips. One is kind of dedicated to going to some new place that people get to discover. It is educational. It has, I don't know, teachers preparing it. Like last year, for example, we had Dr. Matthew McConnell visit school in June, and we went to Bourges, where we, witnessed the Bourges Cathedral, one of the most impressive and, uh, you know, kind of well-known Gothic cathedrals in the world. And or we would go to Moulins, Moulins-sur-Allier, which is another town not far away from us. And the other sort of trips we have are the trips for teenagers and like preteens to get an experience of being in a city or in a town. Because it turns out that not all of them actually have this experience. And it also turns out that very often when people live, for example, in the United States, they travel by car, and they don't actually, I don't know, they don't plan their commute. They don't know how to figure the sort of things out. They never use common transport. And that's an interesting experience for people who live in big cities. Uh, Also, they would not walk by feet far away usually. They would not discover places on their own. And generally, when we travel with, I mean, when people travel with their kids to some new places, they would usually plan the trip because they want to see some stuff in those places. As a result, their kids don't have an experience of actually planning a trip, figuring out what's interesting here, what to do, how to do. We had an amazing project last year that I was really proud of, when we selected literally 5 eldest students at school just by birth date, and we gave them a project. So they were planning the whole field trip to Moulins. I'm sorry. Yeah. So they planned the whole trip to Moulins, and they went there. They did the research. They figured out where to go, how to go, when to invite, where to take other kids, where to eat within the allocated budget, how to feed the whole school, and stuff like this. And then we took the whole school there, and adults acted adults. I mean, they were people responsible for the minors, but they didn't have the plan. And the only people who had the plan were those 5 elder students, and they actually did magnificently. I think it was a great experience for them and for the younger kids and for the whole school. That was, that's how we go outside.
They did an incredible job,
Yeah.
incredible job. Uh, okay, so what would you say? Actually, I also want to ask this question to the students of ours. We do usually send the packing list for like to the families before going on site with everything you need to pack for the school and clothing wise and all the things that you would need to live on campus for 3 weeks. But students, that's going to be an interesting question. But students sometimes bring extra things with them that they consider something that they will definitely need and they will definitely use on site, something that is not in their packing list. What would you say? What are, say, one thing that is the most important thing to take, either from packing list or not from the packing list? And do you remember any, you know, stories or things that people brought with them for their on-site sessions? I've just I had two of my favorite that what people brought, but
I would say two most important things for you to take. People will not forget their phone or laptop or documents. So I would say it's either your wristwatch. That's an object not everybody uses, but we highly encourage, and I personally am an adept of those. I always have a wristwatch. I sometimes even have two. You have to know time. You have to plan. The campus is huge. You got to get to classes on time. How would you do that without knowing what time is it? How would you plan without knowing what time it is? How would you be responsible for your own life if you are incapable of, you know, seeing around in terms of like doing such a basic thing as following time? And so that's first thing. And the other thing is water bottle. Water bottle is an object linked to the habit of regularly drinking water, which is a habit I personally hate because I don't like water. It's not tasty to me, most of the waters. But I know, as a person with some, I would say, southern experiences, that dehydration is one of the most dangerous conditions that might happen to you. And you just have to drink water, full stop. Um, and I think that stuff like fancy water bottles that you like or things like that encourage people to drink more water and kind of link this habit. Like object is linked to the habit that we can also encourage people to build in their lives, actually all people. So those would be my two objects. And I actually have zero objects that people brought to the on-site that I think are weird, but I have a story, an opposite story. Once, a student called Max from Boston won an archery competition, and Max won an actual
oh,
bow. Thank you. Um, so Max had a problem of how to transport a bow back to the United States, how to prove it's not a weapon, how to get it packed in a suitcase, and other interesting questions that Max had. And I remember he was phoning his parents and saying, "Oh, mom, you don't imagine what kind of problems I have here. You would have never thought." And she, I guess, has never thought.
and that was his actual first experience with archery when he like practiced for a couple of sessions and then won a tournament. Yeah. So I had the two objects come to my mind, like I think the ones that I had to deal with at some point is once during the last session last year, one of the students, it was a graduation schedule for that session, and she brought a whole suitcase packed with graduation dresses because she couldn't choose before the session. So she brought all of them, so she would have 3 more weeks to make her final choice. That was one. And the second one was when we were having this great, fancy awards event. And the actual awards, the little statues, we were making them with a wood burner. Like we needed a wood burner to make them. And we had a very old wood burner. It was working, but it was like, one of those old ones from 80s. We were pretty much, struggling with it, to be honest. And at some point, one of our students are passing by and say, "Oh, do you need a better wood burner?" We're like, I mean, we would love to, but that's the only one we have. And he was like, I'm gonna bring you one right now. And he literally brings us an amazing modern wood burner that we end up using. This is something that he's been carrying in his luggage, traveling with.
Just
Though
in case, you never know.
yes, though his luggage is tiny, and something was carrying like 2 t-shirts and 2 pair of pants and a wood burner. So those were 2 things that I remember from the top of my head, but there were much more, of course. So this is the thing. Generally, we do send packing lists of everything you need to bring to live there. But we do see that many students are planning ahead. They do treat those 3 weeks as their 3 weeks on campus. They do treat it like home by the end of the school year, for sure, by the end of their time with us. And they do plan to do all kind of things that we, while they're still safe or observed, that we do welcome and do encourage them to actually do. So if they do want to bring their, I don't know, paints and do something with that, they're more than welcome. Once there was a student bringing their skateboard and practicing it. So all kind of things like that.
We
do.
often have students who bring their musical instruments like violins, and we even once had a student or twice bringing a cello. In
Yes.
case you're doubting, cello's huge, huge.
Yeah, so this is something we always, would love to learn about it, would love to help with it. We are very welcome in terms of those things. So yeah, so this is the campus. Again, this year we are having a graduation in June, and this is the time, a rare time, when we open the doors of our campus for the guests. So if you'd like to visit and meet some students, meet the teachers, meet other staff, this is the time for you to do that. What date is that again?
June 13th.
June 13th, Chateau Le Sallay. Okay.
Oh. Thank you so much for being with us today, and see you tomorrow on the open house day dedicated to the academics. The most interesting part, probably. See you tomorrow and have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.